1 year ago, the world was bracing for the fall of Kyiv. Well, I just come from a visit to Kyiv, and I can report Kyiv stands strong. It stands tall, and most important, it stands free. Freedom. There is no sweeter word than freedom. There is no nobler goal than freedom. There's no higher aspiration than freedom. And all that we do now must be done so our children and grandchildren will know it as well. Freedom. Let us move forward with an abiding commitment to be allies, not of darkness but of light, not of oppression but of liberation, not of captivity but yes, of freedom. May God bless you all, and may God bless the heroes of Ukraine and all those who defend freedom around the world.
So the Truth and Democracy Coalition was formed to build a pro-democracy movement in America. We educate the public about disinformation, teach people to be critical of the propaganda they consume, and provide critical analysis of current events and social issues. We produce media and educational materials, hold seminars and meetings, work with other organizations, and organize events and activities geared toward building a pro-democracy movement in America. The coalition seeks to build communities of people of different faiths and ideologies to defend and promote democracy locally, nationally, and globally. And we have a monthly meeting every month, and next month we're having Dr. George Simon, who is an internationally recognized expert on manipulators and other problem characters, and the author of 3 best-selling books. He's going to be speaking about recognizing character disturbance in politicians and leaders so that we don't elect them into office and recognize this problem of phenomenon of our time is what he calls it, character disturbance. And that is going to be on March 19th at noon. And you can register for that by going to tinyurl.com/disturbed character. So, and then we have another event coming up in April. Yes, and that will be with diversity, equity, and inclusion expert and organizer Sandhya Jha. And we'll be talking there about why America, having a discussion about why America is not a racist nation. And so that more information to come on that. Now, at this time, I'd also like to open it up to discussion. You see any other comments or questions in the chat?
I have a comment here. Susan Rico says, I think it's important to distinguish that the liberalism you're speaking of is frequently called classical liberalism, to distinguish it from the modern use of the word and more aligned with libertarianism today.
Yes, it is classical liberalism. I would say absolutely classical liberalism. But I think that sometimes we make these distinctions. And obviously, when people use the word liberal, that's important. What do we mean when we use it? Do we mean libertarian? I generally don't. And when the right says liberal, they mean socialist, is what they mean. They mean progressive. And when the left says liberal, they mean neoliberalism or some negative thing. So about liberalism.
So what is your definition of liberalism?
Well, I think the classical liberalism is what I'm talking about here. Classical liberalism, individual rights and democracy and equal treatment under the law.
What about progressivism?
Progressivism tends to be associated in my mind with socialism.
Is that a bad thing?
Well, I think about socialism is I'm not a socialist because I don't believe in Marx's ideas. And when we talk about socialism, what we often are referring to, we're thinking more of social democracies like in Northern Europe, Sweden, and so forth.
Can't they be combined in a way, like libertarian democracy and socialism? Because I think they both work.
I think they can be, well, I think we have social democracies, which I think is what you're talking about. And those are I think those are great. I think that's what we're talking about. But when we talk about socialism itself as an ideology, and we start to get into a conflict between these principles, ideological principles, like this is, we start to develop this ideological struggle that they're not completely compatible. Socialism and liberalism are not completely compatible ideologically, but we can have social policies like social democracy, where we provide services, we protect equal rights, we protect people's rights, and we provide for the basic needs of the community. I think in some sense, when people talk about socialism, when they mean that, that's perfectly fine. I'm in support of that, but it's not necessarily the proletariat versus the bourgeoisies and the emphasis on markets and the economy rather than on the political structure and social and rights and liberties and so forth. I think that we start to get into this ideological debate that is, I think, destructive of liberalism. So we have to counter the extremes, I think. But yeah, I think they can both be not necessarily combined, but we can have a policy, a liberal policy of social democracy where we're providing for the needy, but we still have a market economy to some extent, and we still have, businesses and corporations and all that. We're not tearing that down. And I think creating a whole entire system as Marx envisioned is probably not going to work. So yeah, in some sense, Jeffrey, yeah, we can combine them in a way that's healthy and good, but also recognize that when liberalism is being attacked ideologically, that's an important point to be aware of, because the problem is not that there's some distinction between these ideologies or that whether we can do one or another. It's that we have propagandists from both the left and the right, both foreign and domestic, who are inserting messages into our minds through the media and through fundraising appeals and through communications like this that are anti-liberal. And that's the problem, when it becomes an anti-liberal, that the struggle is over our minds and the ideologies and the attitudes that we have. So that when they say attack the individual, or when they say neoliberal, right, they're attacking a Democratic candidate. That's just plain and simple. That's what's happening. It's not that the candidate, just because the candidate maybe is insufficiently socialist for the progressive groups. And we end up attacking ourselves. And then we end up on the right, the far right. We end up being Putin apologist, anti-American. We end up supporting anti-Americanism because America is the imperialist country. What I just read an article about that. And we end up seeing America as the evil in the world when it's not. And that's the danger here.
But I know we did many bad things during the Cold War, if you know that.
We and everybody in the entire world, and we, because we have more power, have done terrible things, absolutely. Or not we, the nation, our leaders, we are far from perfect, but when we we have to compare ourselves to others, right? We're not North Korea. We're not Russia. We're not China.
They done more evil than us.
Yeah, I think if you look at the Iron Curtain that runs through Africa, that's all Putin, China, Prigozhin, and their influence in the Southern Hemisphere. But in South America, we have a lot of democracies. Even though we've done bad things and overthrown those democracies, those were terrible errors, terrible mistakes.
No.
We have not been opposed to democracy as China and Russia and North Korea and other dictators are. Our preference for democracy and some of the good things we've done. So it's important not to see us through not to look at us through rose-colored glasses or through black glasses either. We have done, the world is full of evil, and we have participated, our nation has participated in it. But it doesn't mean that our nation is the evil empire. that Putin wants us to believe, or that some socialists want us to believe.
So
We
the
just
West-
need to fix our image.
Well, yeah, I think we're getting there, but we also have to keep from being divided in this country over issues that are pushing us further and further to the right. You know, when the attack on liberalism pushes us further to the right, not to the left. That's the problem. Attacking our liberal foundations undermines our democracy. It doesn't support it. So,
Jana Rose Kelly asked, besides this quote by Angela Davis printed by JBP, are you aware of other attacks on liberalism from individuals on the left?
well, yeah, I mean, just the neoliberalism is one example I've brought up. And the fact that we are Putin apologists, you know, that we've now are attacking not only individualism, but America as a country, as if we were the evil empire. You know, these are the ideas that come out of the right, as if this conflict in Ukraine were an inter-imperialist conflict and had nothing to do with the rights and freedoms of the Ukrainian people. We can see it coming over and over again. Now, right now, we have these people from Code Pink, right, who are saying, oh, we got to have an investigation over the Nord pipeline disaster, or that whether America targeted this pipeline from Russia to Germany. You know, we don't need to do that. Russia is in a war. You know, if we did that, nobody was killed. No oil was spilled because Russia had already cut it off. So this is the type of thing that we begin to see when we actually listen to what people are saying. You know, if we listen to what people are saying, and that it's highly, highly negative towards the United States, highly, highly negative towards our Constitution, and that is a problem. You know, that it's the excessive negativity that creates negative attitudes and so we get into conflict. People who support America versus people who are opposed to America, who think America is the evil empire, versus people who think America is the great Christian nation. And that's the conflict that we have. And I think that conflict ends up with both extremes moving farther and further to the right, toward authoritarianism. Because America is still the beacon of democracy around the world, although we now have a flawed democracy and are backsliding, and that's what we're trying to stop. But yeah, let's see. Rao, and I can't say the first name. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, nice evening here in New Jersey. Yes, I just wondering about what is the feel is level to our citizens. You know what? We make our country is number one planet Earth, and then planet universe also on the Mars. We are the number one. Nobody won't beat us. No country won't beat us. That's 100% perfect. So we have to make our enemies level ground feel fair. Then our enemies to know our enemies means our different countries, whoever, like North Korea, like whatever it is, example, they know we are the number one. They already know that we are number one in the universe anyway. All forms of anyway. So our citizen is also number one. They need to we welcome all world country peoples as a red carpet here. We welcome them. They are safe and secure. Their lives is better than their countries. We're making the red carpet living here. But our citizens goes to other countries, our enemies, our friends, our neighbors, whatever it is. I mean, they don't welcome us the red carpet. They want our dollars. They want our jobs. They want our thing. But when our citizens goes there, they don't welcome in the red carpet. They jealousy about our citizens. What we need to do is we don't want fight with them. We don't want to go war with them. We just need to our ordinary citizens as a number one their country. Number one, when they going to taking the other country by flight, they already they land over there. They make our citizens the number one red carpet. Thus make the field level. They understand these country people, number one country people coming to visit our country. They are the VIPs, very, very important persons. They need to make that's the way field level. They understand. They never ever dare to come our country. That is
Right.
the politics we have to do. That is the number one. What is the number one? Country means people, peoples means country. Is the country number one? So then people are so number one. There is no difference, but they want our resources, our economy, our jobs, everything, but our citizens not treated by number one their country when we visit there. That is the difference. That is, we must need to focus on it, and then they understand what we are. They never come at look at us like enemy again. That is social. That is the way. That is the weapon. I understood. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. I was reading an article today that we think we're oppressed here in the United States. From a person, I read an article, it's from a person who escaped from North Korea. And she looks at it and says, what the heck are we talking about? We have people coming from socialist countries, and America is oppressive. And it boggles their minds. So, Samuel, so you put the question in the chat, Samuel?
I did put the question in chat, and I want to be sure to respond to it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you see the question, Mom?
Oh, I finally found it.
Okay, what is it?
Okay, it's a little long. Wait a minute. Have you read Bob Avakian's book, which separates the new communism from the traditional or Stalinist communism? I assume you dislike socialism as you find it to communism. There is an organization of social democrats. Avakian believes in a, wait a minute, let me get
it's Avakian, I think.
Democracy, which a new, better structure of elections.
I worked with Refuse Fascism, and that's where I met Samuel when they were working to impeach Donald Trump, and when people on the left were saying ridiculous things like Trump is just a symptom, and the Poor People's Campaign was refused, did not allow their participants to engage in work to impeach Donald Trump, when we absolutely needed to hold that man accountable. He was a threat to our democracy at the earliest points. And so I was frustrated. I was thankful that Refuse Fascism was out there working to impeach Donald Trump. Hi, Benjamin. I see your hand up, and I'll get to you. Okay. So I really think that, but I'm not too fond of Bob Avakian. I've listened to his stuff a little bit, and it's very wordy. And there's a issue on the left that the idea that you just list a group of grievances, list all these grievances, and then you come to the conclusions that, America is evil or something. But people can list grievances all over the place. And, but having a balanced view where we see both sides, see both the good and the bad, I think is important. And I have not read Bob Avakian's book. And from what I've read of him, I find it repetitive and just a list of things, and with no real logical connections being drawn. And so that's why I don't like Bob Avakian. But I haven't read it, so I can't really comment on his book. Okay, Benjamin, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So I do remember something about Trump. Trump wants to keep us on the left and not the right because Trump and his extreme mega Republicans are trying to use it for power. But if they did, then why are they trying to get in control of the Constitution and democracy from for having us to stand on the left and not on the right?
Okay. Run that by me a little bit again, Benjamin. I'm trying to understand it as best as can. Why is the right trying to do what?
Okay, so what? So my question was, why is Trump wants us to stay on the left instead of on the right side?
Okay, well, I'm going to try. See, Trump is a right-wing person. He's more about himself, really, and he's using propaganda. He's a propagandist, plain and simple. Trump is a huge propagandist, and he's appealing to the worst parts of America. Okay, but on the left, we have people who, you know, Putin has his hands in a lot of things. Where do people get their money from? You know, who are there pushing his agenda? And part of it is ideological, that they really believe America is the imperialist evil empire. And part of it is just they listen to Putin's anti-Western world, anti-American, anti-NATO propaganda. And so what happens is on the left, we get repeated Putin's propaganda by people who have developed over the years a negative attitude towards the United States and towards America. So over the years, with this indoctrination of these anti-liberal, anti-American sort of messages, because we have to be critical. There's one thing about being critical. It's another thing to be excessively negative. So we can be critical and speak truth to power without being condemning the entire system and our entire nation and its history, and any action that it takes, you know, becomes America can do no good in the world. No, America can do good in the world. And so what we end up with is that when America wants to overthrow a democracy, or when the politicians in power want to overthrow a democracy in another country, nobody stops them. But the moment that we want to support a democracy or help support a country that's being attacked by a fascist nation, we get a bunch of people on the left screaming, you know? So that the injection into this is not just from Trump, but other domestic and foreign propagandists instilling a negative attitude towards our own country, towards our own people, and towards the entire Western world. And at that point, we are in a major problem. We have now become part of the far right, or part of the fascist agenda. Because if you go too far on the extremes, it's more like a triangle. There's a point when you go too far that they meet, you know, that fascism and revolutionary radical ideas taken to extremes end up meeting each other. And liberalism is it's the antidote to authoritarianism. That's what it was created for, and that's what it is. So we need to defend our liberal democracy here, and not condemn our country.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Why are the Republicans trying to take it all away from us?
Take our what away from us?
Take away our democracy and voting rights from us.
He's saying, why are the mega extremists trying to take our democracy away?
Well, they're under the influence of far-right propaganda, and I think that they are deceived, basically, but that they've been told that democracy is threatened and they feel threatened, and some of them are racist. I mean, when we talk about far-right extremists, we're not really talking about conservatives necessarily. There are a lot of conservatives who are not far-right extremists, and so the far-right extremist, that's the problem when we get far-right controlling the narrative. Trump has been pumping them up. They've been spreading their propaganda. And because I think in some parts they're narcissists, and want power and feel threatened. But most of it, I think, is because they've been indoctrinated by Trump's propaganda, Putin's propaganda. There's an infiltration, and there's a desire, a human desire to be a part of something, to have power, and they play to those human emotions and human psychology in a way that taps into the dark side of that human knowledge. It taps into bigotry, racism, hatred, fear, that they're professionals who know how to tap into that and create people who will fight against their own interest. And we've seen that all the time, and will fight against freedom,
So we need people who could tap into the light of people.
Yes, and have a more positive attitude. Be more positive about America and about our principles and the way we choose to live. Thank you, Benjamin. I want to get everybody away in time for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's only 2 minutes.
Or Puppy Bowl.
Don't miss that either. Right. All right. Thank you, everybody. Okay, remember to register for our next program on character disturbance, and you can do that at tinyurl.com/disturbed character.
Rupert Murdoch thinks Fox viewers are stupid. He told us Fox stood with Trump, stood with America, that Fox was the mega network. But behind their backs, he was laughing. Rupert admits he knew from the start that the stolen election lie was a joke, a con, a fraud he pulled on Donald Trump, the mega base, and the Fox audience. The people he made into mega heroes, off the air, they called them liars, kooks and crazies. Fox knew they were lying, but made millions tricking their viewers. Rupert knew the election wasn't stolen and told you it was. Sean and Tucker and Laura knew. Everyone at Fox knew. They lied and kept lying, even when it led to violence and death. That's Fox News, and that's the truth.